We're so glad you're able to join us today. Let's get started by introducing our presenter, Oscar Combs. Oscar Combs is a senior consultant of the ISO 9001 Group. Oscar has over 22 years of experience providing consulting, auditing, and training to organizations such as Transocean, Hewlett-Packard, Kawasaki, Cameron, Halliburton, and numerous other medium and small-size organizations throughout the United States and abroad. Oscar is an exemplar certified lead auditor and a principal management consultant. Everyone, let's welcome Oscar and begin our presentation today.
Hello, everyone. This is Oscar Combs here with the ISO 9001 Group, and I really appreciate you taking out your time to join us for this complimentary webinar. As you guys know, we like to help our clients improve their operations and reduce their risk through their management system. And we come to you about every other month with a complimentary webinar with the hopes that this information will do just that, help you improve your operations and reduce your risk. So for this webinar, put some thought into, what organizations could possibly be dealing with. And I thought of this issue of interested parties, understanding our interested parties and their needs and expectations, which is a requirement in ISO 9001 2015. But of course, organizations seem to struggle with the concept. So today, I hope to be able to shed some light on this concept. All right, so today we are going to talk about what that all means, the interested parties within your organizations. Maybe you're having difficulty understanding who are your interested parties, who's interested in your company. Oh, well, hopefully a lot of people. Once we understand who our interested parties are, what are their needs and expectations? So we'll get into some of that today. All right, so in this webinar, we are going to talk about identifying these interested parties, how to distinguish a need from an expectation. Those two things are different. And I'll be providing a simple method to help you document the needs and expectations of your interested parties. Before we get into it, I want to talk a little bit about our company so you can know who we are, the ISO 9001 Group. We are a consulting firm. We offer consulting, auditing, and training. We're based here in Houston, Texas. Although we're based in Houston, our clients spread the U.S. and internationally as well. And our main focus is on helping companies improve operations and reducing their risk through your management system. And that's what a management system is ultimately all about. And our consultants have an average of 25 years of experience. And we're very proud of our A+ rating. We have to earn that rating. That means that you can trust us. I also would like to take the opportunity to encourage you to like and follow the ISO 9001 Group. You can find us on your favorite social media, such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, things of that nature. And you can search the ISO 9001 Group and like and follow us, like our page. We give out random monthly $10 Amazon gift cards for people who like and follow us. So encourage you to do that. And you guys know $10 is like $50 on Amazon. So you can have a good time. Now, at the end of the webinar, I'm going to be answering questions. So make sure you put your question in through the chat feature. And we'll be monitoring your chats and your questions and compiling them. So at the end, I will answer any questions. You don't want to miss these answers, to these questions. All right, so I always like to start off with a segment that I call Straight from the Standard. So this is the clause of ISO 9001 2015 that deals with what we're talking about today. So let's read it quickly here. So at 4.2, understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties, it reads, due to their effect or potential effect on the organization's ability. Now, I've kind of bolded some key words that I want you to really focus on, due to their effect or potential effect. And I like to always put your name where it says on the organization's ability. So just think about your organization's ability to consistently provide products and services that meet customer and applicable statutory and regulatory requirements, the organization shall determine, and then it tells us A and B. A, the interested parties. So who are the interested parties of your organization that are relevant? Now, this is a key word, relevant to the quality management system. And so what we're talking about are interested parties that are relevant to your organization's quality management system. Because today we're talking about ISO 9001, which is a quality management system standard. Now, the reason why I'm stressing this is because, of course, you have interested parties in other management systems within your organization, just in your business in general, in your safety systems, environmental systems, other management systems. But today, I want us to focus on interested parties that are relevant to the quality management system. And then B, the requirements of these interested parties that, again, are relevant to the quality management system. The standard goes on to read that your organization shall monitor and review this information about your interested parties and their relevant requirements. So this is straight from the standard. I would encourage you to go there and read it yourself. Make sure you understand what ISO 9001 says. I call this going to the Bible, going to the source. This is not someone's opinion or auditor's opinion, consultant's opinion. I mean, this is right from the standard. All right. So make sure you always go to the standard first. Now, let's talk about the term interested party. So I thought it would be important for us to define that. It's a person or organization that can affect, be affected by, or perceive themselves to be affected by a decision or activity. Now, that's very broad. First of all, a person or an organization that can affect your company, be affected by your company, or even perceive themselves to be affected by your company, by decisions or activities of your organization. Now, that's a very broad term, so I want you guys to think about, who can be affected by our organization? Who do we affect? And who could possibly perceive themselves to be affected by your organization? Now, that last one, perceive themselves to be affected by, now that one is one I struggle with a bit, but we're going to talk about it here now. So I want you to ask yourself this question. When we start identifying our interested parties, that's the first step in this process. We need to identify who our interested parties are. What people or organizations can affect us, be affected by us, or perceive themselves to be affected by your organization. Now, again, we want to make sure that we keep this in context. So we're talking about the interested parties related to your quality management system. So I thought we would put together a quick little table here and just look at these columns here. And I've kind of divided it up in 3 columns: can affect, be affected by, perceive to be affected. Now, if we think about it, there are parties or interested parties outside of the organization, and then there are interested parties within the organization. And so you want to start outside and then work your way into your organization. So, for example, if we look at this, regulatory bodies, they are interested in our organization. They're interested in the decisions or activities related to our quality management system. I'm sure you guys can think of several regulatory bodies that would be interested in your decisions or activities. Let's name a few. EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, OSHA, possibly, Department of Transportation, the old IRS, for example, API, things of that nature, industry regulatory bodies as well. So if we look at it, we want to say, okay, these interested parties can affect your organization. So that's why we put an X here, because they can have a major effect on our organization. Then we look at maybe identifying some additional ones: shareholders, people who own shares of the organization. They can affect the organization. How can they affect the organization? They can invest funds into the organization, or they can also take those funds away. Now, they can also be affected by your organization, right? Shareholders are affected by the performance of your organization, and so that would make them very interested in your decisions and activities. If your company is having poor quality, that's affecting shareholders. If your company is wasting material, time, resources, that's reducing the profitability of the organization, right? So be affected by. Shareholders can be affected by your organization. Let's talk about owners. We can kind of think of shareholders and owners kind of in the same vein. They kind of share they have some of the same interests in our organization. Let's move on to employees. Now, this is quite interesting. When I go to clients quite often, I ask them about, who are your interested parties? And, they typically say customers, number one, and then they'll say suppliers possibly. But sometimes I have to remind them that the employees of your organization are also interested in your activities and your decisions within your company. Can an employee affect your quality system? You better believe an employee can affect your quality system. A dissatisfied employee can have an impact on the quality of your products and services that you're offering. If they are not doing things per established procedures and processes, they can have an effect. If they're, having nonconformity, not properly trained, they can have an effect on your organization. But they can also be affected by the decisions and activities of the organization, right? And we'll talk about some of these things for employees, but surely one of the big things is the employment itself. If your organization is not producing good quality, customers are leaving, that's going to cause a need to reduce headcount and therefore unemployment. And so they can be affected by your organization. That's why I feel it's always important to explain to employees that the implications of them not doing things per the established process or per the established procedure, that they really understand that when certain things don't go right, that they are actually affected by that as well personally. Let's talk about customers. Our customers can affect our organization, right? If customer is happy with the quality of our products and services, they may give us more business. They may refer us to other companies. If a customer is not happy, they can affect us by leaving our organization. Now, some people say, well, no word is a good word, but sometimes no word just simply means that the customer has found another resource. Okay. Now, a customer is also can be affected by your organization as well, right? So you are part of your customer's supply chain. And so they understand that they can be affected by your quality management system. Now you may see, some may say, well, many of these you could put the perceived to be affected by in these columns as well. But if you're affected by it, it's just a known fact that perception and actually being affected are kind of like one and the same. Where if someone perceives themselves to be affected, they may not actually be affected. But if you are affected, the perception is just kind of automatically built in. So let's move on. Let's talk about suppliers. Right? Suppliers, they can affect our organization. If your suppliers are shipping you the wrong material, if they are providing you with subpar subpar products and services. They can affect your quality. They can affect the decisions or activities related to your quality management system. That's why it's important that we make sure we have a strong supply chain. Now, they can also be affected by your organization, right? A supplier can be affected by your organization. For one, of course, if they are performing well, we can, organization can give them more business. Maybe your organization may want your supplier to have more controls in place, so therefore affecting your suppliers. Could go somewhere and do business with another company, therefore affecting your supplier. So as we can see, a supplier, of course, would be an interested party. What about the community? Meaning the surrounding community. Your organization is physically located in a community. The community can affect your organization, and they can also perceive themselves to be affected by your organization. Maybe indirectly they are affected, so therefore they may perceive themselves to be affected, but maybe not directly affected. So therefore, that's why I didn't put a X and be affected by. And your competitors, believe it or not, our competitors are interested parties, right? Maybe sometimes we don't think of them as such, but ISO 9001 is really forcing us to think more risk, and you definitely should be thinking about your competitors when you think about risk within your organization. So they can affect our organization, right? They can come up with different initiatives or new techniques or decrease the price on their products or services, therefore impacting your organization and the quality that you feel you can offer. And so they can affect your organization, and they, of course, perceive themselves to be affected by your organization as well. So it's very important to kind of sit down and really think about who our interested parties are. Can they affect us? Are they affected by us? And then do they perceive themselves to be affected by us? Maybe they're not necessarily affected by us. All right, so let's move on. So the next thing in the standard was to distinguish needs and expectations. The needs and expectations of your interested party. So I thought it was important to define what a need is. So a need is something that is required because it is essential or very important. It's a necessity. So, it's required. It's a requirement of the interested party. It is essential to what we're doing on behalf of the interested party or for the interested party, and they deem it to be very important. The expectation is a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future, a belief that someone will or should achieve something. Now, I see some words in here that I don't really like when it comes to quality systems, these words of should and believe and things of this nature. When it comes to like doing audits and quality systems, we kind of like the words shall, must. You guys know what I'm talking about. But we can see that clearly that a need is something that is required, and an expectation is something that someone believes should happen for them. All right. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's required. So those two things are very different. And so I thought it was important to stress the two differences. So with that in mind, our table of interested parties, we've identified them, and distinguishing a need from an expectation, now it gives us the ability to look at our interested parties from the perspective of what they need and what they expect from our quality management system or from our organization. All right, so let's talk about shareholders. So shareholders, of course, they need to be profitable. They need our organization to be profitable. and they expect growth from their investment, right? Because they don't invest in your organization to lose money. Employees, they need steady employment. They expect to be able to grow within your organization, so a career path. Customers, they need your organization to meet their requirements, but they expect you to do that on budget, and they expect you to do it on time, of course. Suppliers, they need consistent business from your organization, but they expect on-time payments. The community, they need your organization to be good neighbors, and they expect you to operate in a socially responsible manner. Regulatory bodies, they need you to pay various taxes and fees, and they expect you to follow the laws and regulations. Now, they need you to do that, but when they come and audit, their expectation is that you're already doing these things, right? So need an expectation. So you're able to now, since you have an understanding who the interested parties are, definition of a need and expectation, you could come up with a table here to help you focus our activities and our decisions towards meeting these needs and expectations through our quality system. Now, there's nothing in the standard that requires you to do a table or matrix or anything like that. The goal here is just to provide you with how, to visualize that requirement that's in the standard and give you some tips on how you can implement that within your organization. So how can you use all of this information? You may be asking yourself. So the first thing you can do with all of this information after you do this and have a good understanding, now we can step back and make sure that our quality management system is really working to address those needs and expectations. Do we have clear processes and procedures? Are the employees, do we have good job descriptions? Are they going through training? Are we doing inspections? Are we doing audits, controlling our nonconformities, things of this nature? Are we assessing risk? Number two, it helps your organization identify the overall context of your organization. That's probably a future webinar just going to be focusing on helping organizations define the context of your organization, because that's something else that's new in 2015 that a lot of companies seem to be struggling with. But having this clear understanding of our needs and expectations, the outcome of that will also help us paint a very clear picture of the context of our organizations. And then, of course, we talked about is going to give us the ability now to look at the risk from the group or specific interested parties that we've identified. All right, so hopefully this information has been beneficial for you. At this time, we are going to see if we have any questions here. So I'm going to turn it back over to Victoria. And Victoria, if you can see if we have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Thank you, Oscar. We do have a few questions. The first question is, what if something is both a need and expectation?
Well, if something is both a need and expectation, I mean, we saw a couple of those that kind of fit in that category in this webinar. You should treat them equally with equal importance and priority. That would be my answer on that one.
Next question. Is it a requirement to document needs and expectations?
Well, the standard does not have the term an organization shall have documented information. Now, when you see that phrase, that would indicate a requirement for some type of record or document, but in that clause, you will not find that term. So the standard doesn't require documented information, but it doesn't say that you can't do it either. So I think it's a good idea to document, just kind of like we've done in the webinar. So I think that's a good exercise. But typically, most of these things that we've talked about are already documented, but they could be documented in various documents that are throughout your organization, such as your business plans and project plans, things of that nature.
Our next question is, where would an organization normally document needs and expectations?
That's a good question. An organization's needs and expectations may be stated in laws and regulations, in the quality manual, in contracts, in memorandums of understanding, master service agreements, performance targets, just kind of things that are probably within your organization today, but spread out is probably where you will find many of these needs and expectations of your interested parties.
Our next question is, how much detail are you tracking about each requirement of each interested party? In regards to an FAR and other government regulations, is a requirements traceability matrix or database or spreadsheet the only option?
Let me see, let me pull a thought into that. I would say the level of detail kind of depends on the actual requirement itself, right? So if it's something that's regulatory, you may have to be very detailed. Make sure you're covering everything. If it's something more like I talked about the community, for example, you may not have to be as detailed because that's not a regulatory requirement. These interested parties simply perceive themselves to be impacted by the organization. But, having a traceability matrix or a database or a spreadsheet are good options. But as I've indicated, in many cases, these needs and expectations are already in documents that are just simply part of doing business.
And our last question is, how would a certification body audit this?
A certification body could have you point to these various documents that I've mentioned that are within your organization, the contracts, the laws and regulations that you may follow, industry regulations, project plans, things of this nature, specifications. You may also present them with something like we've presented here in this webinar that kind of sums it all up. So you're not having to go throughout all of these different documents to identify interested parties and their needs and expectations. So you could kind of pick and choose, but the key thing here is that there's no specific way of doing it. There's really no requirement for documented information by the standard, but there could be requirements for documented information by one of your interested parties that you documented as well, right? So anything else?
That concludes our Q&A session.
Okay. I would like for you guys to really stay tuned in for our next webinar. We will be announcing that to you. I also encourage you to contact us at info@iso9001group.com or give us a call at 832-326-9796 for any additional information or assistance or questions that you have about this topic of interested parties and identifying their needs and expectations. And again, I'd like to encourage you to follow us again on your favorite social media site. I'll turn this back over to Victoria.
Thank you again for attending our complimentary webinar. As Oscar said, be sure to like and follow the ISO 9001 group on social media to stay up to date on when our next complimentary webinar will be, as well as additional training opportunities. This webinar will be available on our website and YouTube channel for your use. Thank you and have a quality day.